As a chubby gal myself, I'll be the first one to admit that I'm fat. It's not an insult, and I'm not doing some sort of self-deprecative bit. I'm just using a word as a descriptor of a body type I and many others have. There's also a great number of characters in media that share similar or various plus-size bodies, but not all of them are portrayed as equally. 9 times out of 10, if you see a fat character on screen, their character is usually boiled down to being about their size. Always being hungry, eating a large amount of food, and being the laziest of the group. Now, all of those traits I just listed can also apply to slim characters, like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. It's so prevalent in his character that it's a running gag. But if he wasn't thin and had the personality of liking food, some people would find it insulting, gross even. Because when a thin person loves food, people find that endearing, but Lord forbid it be a fat person, they should like it a little less. Not to mention the negative archetypes plus-sized characters tend to fall into are the overweight nerds and or menacing bullies. The constant villainization and sidelining of fat characters can affect the self-esteem of those who share the same body type. The same can be said about slimmer bodies too. A sickly, bone-thin character seen as either helpless or evil due to their malnourishment can victimize or undermine people with those bodies. And when a character isn't being a villain or a victim, their size can be part of their gimmick, like Choji from Naruto and Fat Gum from My Hero Academia. These two are known for their body weight and their powers revolve around it. There's not too many characters in their respective worlds that I can think of whose powers are heavily reliant on their body fat. Well, except for maybe Momo, who uses her fat lipids to create objects, but would you have guessed that just by looking at her design? I know I wouldn't, and neither would a good majority of people. While Momo having a larger build would make more sense for her powers, just like Fat Gum, I can't help but side-eye the decision of not making the conventionally attractive girl who could be the victim of fan service fat. But I digress. It's just extremely frustrating that a character can't just be fat for fat's sake or just have their body size be treated as like the norm or usual like a slim body can. No, their fat has to be for a reason. It has to be for a purpose. It has to be of use. They can't just exist as slim characters can, almost as if they're defined by their size, but skinnier characters don't get this treatment. It's giving fat-phobia. Fat-phobia hurts us all in different ways, but its primary target is always on larger bodies, because we have been misled to believe that European standards of beauty with smaller features are deemed more attractive and therefore healthy. But in reality, genetics play a huge role into fat distribution, which is also why people of color can be victims of fat-phobia, especially black people, especially black women. We just naturally have larger features that get deemed as unattractive, though other races love to wear them like some forms of costumes. This ain't the video for that. Thankfully, in recent years, there has been an array of fat characters that combat these fat-phobic ideals and stand on their own as characters. Characters that come to mind are from DreamWorks, Shrek, and Poe, because in their films they're ostracized, treated unfairly, and dealing with people's preemptive assumptions of them just because of their size and characters, or how they present themselves. Through their movies, they're able to open people's minds and have them be accepted for who they are in the end. They didn't need to change their bodies to be accepted. They're owning that shit. And that is true body acceptance. We have lovable elderly characters like Uncle Iroh and Muriel Bag, but there's also the more questionable characters like Pumbaa and Owen. Straight up, I love Pumbaa. We stan another body acceptance king, but Owen can get bent for all I care. He's a beloved total drama favorite, I get it. And he can be more than just eating and fat jokes, but personally, I just don't like him. He's annoying. And that's okay. I'd rather be bothered by his happy-go-lucky character than anything else about him that makes him annoying to me. Now, when it comes down to the look of these characters, that's a whole nother conversation. Because fat character designs can fit in any art style. And if not, damn, that sounds like a skill issue, dog. Wouldn't let that happen to me, though. For as stick thin as Vizipop's designs can be, her team designed some great plus-size characters. Too bad they're subjugated to the background. But there are some cases where designs could have used a second draft or two. I mean, I love Willow. I really do. But compared to her classmates, her character model just looks stretched out. Oh, but my biggest pet peeves come from episodes that try to educate about health and wellness, which is a fine line that can either easily misinform or offer bare bones advice. I don't have a problem with the idea of a health and wellness episode, it's just about the execution, of course. It shouldn't be expected that these type of episodes go into crazy detail regarding health and wellness since it's a very nuanced topic. These episodes usually go over the importance of eating healthier foods, getting exercise, the food pyramid, and other basics that general health classes cover. But they don't take into consideration that not everyone has the same genealogy that can process healthy foods. Or as I prefer calling it, what's nutritious for you? Like, we all know that oranges are a great source of vitamin C, but as someone with an allergy to citrus, it's literally poison to my system. That's why I eat bell peppers now, which has more vitamin C than a damn orange does. Nuts are a great source of protein, but it's also one of the most common allergies to date. People with shellfish sensitivities gotta get their omega-3s some other way, and so on and so forth. So what's considered healthy food can also be subjective. Not to mention what you can afford these days. Subscribe so I can get those bell peppers. I've picked out a few special episodes that try to teach health and wellness, so let's see what we can and can't learn from them. One of the most common ways to discuss wellness in media was to cover the dangers of overeating and what you're putting in your body. The premise goes as such. A character overeats or eats poorly, they become 5 times their size, which is the joke for most of the episode, and by the end, they're back to their original size thanks to diet and exercise, and they learn about balanced eating, health, and blah blah blah. Both Kim Possible and Lilo and Stitch covered this plot, but the teenage action heroine succeeded where the Hawaiian child alien bounty hunter and her dog failed. In the Lilo and Stitch episode titled French Fry, since Pleakley has been feeding the kids junk food, Nani enforces nutritious meals for the family to eat instead. A thoughtful gesture for the betterment of their health, but the food tastes terrible. So to get around Nani's greasy snack embargo, the gang activates an experiment whose primary function is to cook irresistible food. However, the more they eat, the bigger they get, until they eventually become giant bouncing bowling balls that won't stop eating. Because French fries food is full of empty calories and zero nutrition. Nani comes just in time and was able to save her family because she eats a nutritious meal every day. Lilo finds the experiment a place it belongs, selling fat-free tofu fries on the beach. Sounds like a good deal to me. Hold up, is that $250 for some damn fries? What the? Wait. I think the decimal point got misplaced somewhere. I think that's supposed to be $250. $250 for some tofu fries? Told y'all food expensive out here, damn. Nani had good intentions and was concerned for her family's well-being. It's too bad she's a lousy cook, otherwise getting them to eat a nutritious meal would be easier. Or just trick Lilo into thinking oatmeal is mummy food. I guess that works too. Get a little creative. In a way, the episode went against the idea that healthy eating isn't as delicious as eating junk food. The chemicals in our brains respond differently to sugar, so it's no surprise how difficult it can be. Vegetables are full of nutrients, but you can't just serve it bland, and you certainly can't serve it smothered in chocolate. My takeaway from this episode is that there's food with empty calories that's no good for you, and there's food that's nutritious that will keep you energized. And hey, maybe it'll taste good too.
I guess healthy food can be delicious. Right, Stitch?
Yeah.
Not a bad lesson to start, but it's painted very black and white in regards that there's only good food and bad food. Though Kim Possible did the same story, but with a little more nuance. A title that's clearly a spoof on the documentary Super Size Me, Grande Size Me follows Ron trying to prove a point that eating fast food every day isn't harmful, using himself as patient zero. While Kim tries encouraging Ron to consider his eating choices for his own betterment, he's determined to keep eating at Bueno Nacho, and we see him gradually put on weight. Now, unlike in Lilo and Stitch, where they just became rounded for comedic effect, Ron's fat design honestly looks legit. Like, if Ron was ever meant to be a plus-size character in the show, this is the design they could use. It's not an insulting caricature or anything, it's actually really good. As he sticks to his new diet, Ron is shown to be more sluggish, sleepy, and his clothes aren't fitting him anymore. And when he falls into the Project Titan vat, it accelerates his fat, so he grows into the size of a, well, Titan. And the only way to turn him back was forcing him to eat a balanced diet. Which I kind of find ironic that the only way to quell the junk food eater is by forcing him to eat more food. But it's okay because this food is better for him. So, okay, that's kind of stupid. He got that way from eating too much, so now we're making him eat more. Well, the food he's eating is a lot more nutritious than the junk food, so whatever, I guess it evens out. Because junk food just makes you feel hungry all the time.
Eating a balanced diet will keep you from turning into a mutated maniac?
Yeah, something like that.
And another lesson could be everything in moderation. which I find to be a better compromise than limiting your diet to fast food, or what some wheel says, because that's just not realistic. They say too much of a good thing is bad for you, and that does include nutritious food too. Because if it's possible to overhydrate on water, then you can definitely intake too much vitamins. Objectively speaking, that's not healthy. The only reason I found the Kim Possible episode better than Lilo and Stitch is because one advocated that healthy food can be delicious while the other took a stance on the importance of moderation. Which, let's be real here, is a far more grounded lesson most people can follow. Yes, there are good and bad foods, but you shouldn't feel bad for eating something unhealthy if it's on a rare occasion. If I eat like a saint for months on end, I think I deserve a little sweetened grease every blue moon, okay? It's all about moderation. But where Lilo and Stitch failed and Kim Possible succeeded, they both pale in comparison to this episode of The Replacements. In See Dick Run, we learn that Dick was an all-star athlete in his college days. But after beating his own record of eating 36 pounds of ice cream by 37, well, let's just say he's not taking the best care of himself as of today. While Riley is rightfully concerned about her father's health, Todd makes Dick go on a diet, so he's better fit to compete in a septathlon to win a bet with a bully. Dick was able to get his weight down through a seaweed diet, but the kids forgot to incorporate exercise in his training too.
But I don't understand. He lost all that weight. It's not enough to just lose weight. You have to do that and exercise.
Which is an important aspect most health and wellness episodes leave out. They either cover the importance of a balanced diet or exercising. Rarely are both even mentioned, though they're equally necessary in maintaining a balanced life as you age. In the end, Dick learned that maintaining his health is its own reward and comes in second in the septathlon. Kinda funny that I found the Replacements episode on health done better in half the time compared to the others, but next I'd like to go over an episode that tackles the health and wellness episode on two ends of the spectrum. In Health and Fitness, Zach and Chef Paolo are eating too many sweets. Meanwhile, London and Maddie grow self-conscious and worry that they're too fat and thin, respectively, for their fashion show. Cody helps Chef Paolo maintain his diet, while Carrie completely cuts sugar from Zach's diet. But because Paolo and Zach are too weak to resist the urge of sweets, they sneak into the hotel kitchen to Carrie and Cody's disappointment. As his mother, all Carrie wants is to help Zach avoid any potential health risk as he gets older. And as for Cody, he doesn't want to have to say goodbye to a dear friend of his too soon. Carrie and Cody's attempt in helping Zach and Chef Paolo came from a genuine place of love for them.
What do you say we work together on eating healthier foods and then enjoying sweets in moderation?
Good plan.
So when the two started to realize that and put it into perspective, they were able to put in the effort for their loved one's sake and themselves. Zach acknowledges that he does have a problem with sugar, and Chef Paolo takes Cody's words to heart about his diet.
It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle choice.
Elsewhere, London puts herself on an extreme diet and exercise plan, while Maddie is double-sizing every meal she eats. Mr. Mosby tells the girls that they're beautiful just the way they are, and shouldn't feel the need to change for anyone. Such a sweet sentiment they ignored at the time, but comes back to them in the end.
What were we thinking? We're starving and stuffing ourselves. I know. It was so unhealthy, and we didn't even need to do it. I guess Mosby is right after all.
He always is.
Health episodes tend to focus on fat characters needing to maintain their weight, but never have I seen it also cover ED and someone feeling too thin, in the most child-friendly way possible, of course. Because thin bodies can have their own insecurities too, but the focus is more on fat bodies since they're often the victim of fat-phobia. But there's one more unintentionally listed Disney Channel show I'd like to discuss that covers the importance of self-image and confidence. I swear when I was doing this, I didn't intend for all these to come from Disney. It's not my fault the mouse was all up in the health and wellness biz back in the day. In That's So Not Raven, Raven has a vision of her showcasing and modeling her own dress, but once she sees the final pictures in the magazine, she's distraught that they photoshopped her body to appear slimmer and taller since she doesn't have the look. But desperately wanting her vision to come true, Raven retailers her dress and exercises on a crazy machine in order to achieve the look the magazine wants. But when that fails, she accepts her defeat and lets the model wear her dress instead, which was heartbreaking for Mimi, the makeup artist that was cheering Raven on, to hear that she sold out because she was looking forward to seeing a different body type on the runway. Someone that looks more like them, like a regular person. So Raven decides to crash the runway and model her dress herself, and she looks amazing while doing it.
Who says that's the only look? You make people feel bad if they don't look like that. No one looks like that. I don't even look like that.
Now, I know this episode doesn't have a traditional health and wellness story, but I'd argue it still fits the category because having self-confidence with the body you have or worked towards is just as important, and it's also a factor for your health and wellness. No one should make you feel insecure to the point of starving yourself or exercising to the point of exhaustion. Your look is one of many that deserves to be seen. The episode was a call out against fabricating outlandish beauty standards and policing what a body is meant to look like. It promotes body acceptance and having confidence in one's own skin, which I believe goes further than body positivity because how can you expect someone to have a positive attitude about their body if they don't accept it themselves?
Because in case you haven't noticed, people come in all shapes and sizes and they're all beautiful.
Tell it, girl! Speak the truth!
These episodes had the best intention in teaching the basics of health and wellness at the time. It could still be applied today. I'm not aware of any modern shows that have similar episodes, although I could be wrong, please let me know. While I'm not against the idea of educating people on health, it's just a matter of how you frame it. Best case scenario, people will learn better eating habits for themselves and build their self-confidence. Worst case scenario, they feel guilty over all the bad food they eat and feel pressured to either hide it or live in shame for it. It can take one down a very dark path, developing an ED and self-esteem issues. So overall, I'd encourage people to take the lessons at face value because health is so much more nuanced than balanced diet and exercise. Think on how they can apply to you and your goals and move forward from there. Now, I think that we can all agree that if you don't have the ability to stand on your own, or you can't get up by yourself, no matter how large or small you are, then that's an issue towards one's living condition. But there are different factors that led to this point that no one can just boil down to due to a lack of diet and exercise. Health is subjective and really complicated, so the conversations surrounding it should be just as complex and nuanced. You can't equate body sizes to health because there's so much beneath the surface that's going on. So unless you're someone's personal, unbiased medical provider, or a close family member or friend that deeply cares about them, your opinions on a stranger's health is just that. An uninformed opinion because you don't know what's going on with them and don't act like you care to know. We should just be able to see fat people exist, just as we should see fat characters exist, because you know what? They exist. We exist. I exist. I don't need a justification to exist, and neither do you. It would be more helpful to see more body diversity in general to help combat these stigmas media has portrayed for years. But just know that no matter your size, you're handling it your way at your own pace, not someone else's. It's not going to happen overnight. You will slip up here and there, but you know what's best for yourself and how to take care of it. Best of luck to you all. You're beautiful, and don't let anyone make you believe otherwise. To follow up on my recent video discussing how the media tends to portray fat and other plus-size people, that ultimately boiled down to me revisiting early 2000s Disney shows that had episodes centered on the simplicities of health, balanced diets, and body image. I liked working on that video so much that I wanted to continue to have more of a nuanced discussion of health and wellness, but the episodes I'll discuss today are from modern shows, and for the love of God, it's not Disney. I found these episodes to have a central theme of the importance of maintaining one's health and staying in shape for their given reason according to their lifestyle. Personally, I don't get a sense of fat shaming from them, well, except for one of them, but it's small. Each given character has their desire or is encouraged to maintain their physical well-being for themselves or for their family. But negative consequences will creep up if your well-being is being pushed to one end of the extreme or towards the other. A donut every now and again is fine, but every day is a lot of excess sugar for your body to process and will struggle to keep up. Just as it's healthy to get in some exercise any way you can, it's also unhealthy to constantly push your body past its limits, causing severe muscle aches and damage. Because health is a lot more nuanced with different factors and avenues that can't just be solved by going to the gym or change your entire eating habit overnight, we must be willing to discuss it with an open mind. For every just work out, there are others trying their best to educate and inform that there are multiple factors that prevent going to the gym as a simple solution, and it's not as practical as one might think. Unfortunately, some are just too stubborn to realize it's not that simple for most people. Access to gym memberships could be out of someone's price range. They live too far from a gym. They could have children to care for that eats up most of their free time. Or, and I'm speaking from personal experience on this one, working a physically demanding job that leaves you wiped out. These aren't excuses and shouldn't be looked at as such. To avoid working out, it's just a matter of people needing other options or workarounds to stay on track to their specific fitness and wellness goal. So while I adore these episodes and can believe they can be beneficial towards a more nuanced discussion of health, sadly, they can't all be winners, and may even promote some harmful ideas under the guise of avoiding bullies. In the Cleveland Show episode titled Fat and Wet, feeling insecure and tired of being ridiculed, Junior and Kendra run away to Wisconsin to indulge themselves amongst their people, but realize that it's not going to help them in the long run. Due to Cleveland Brown Jr.'s sleep apnea, Dr. Fist recommends a light diet with exercise to help him, but since that's never been working for the kid in the past, Dr. Fist has Jr. wearing a breathing mask instead. A very real-world phenomenon for most. Even if someone sticks to their diet and exercise, they could still see little to no results. And in Junior's case, it may also be due to genetics, since Black and African Americans can pass down predated health issues that stem from our parents and their parents. Cleveland encourages Junior to not wear the mask at school to avoid bullies, but the benefits of aided breathing and higher energy was what Junior needed to get up a flight of steps that even a kid in a wheelchair, back brace, and an elderly lady could comedically walk up. Unfortunately, the kids do make fun of him for his mask and throw fat jokes Junior's way. Tired of being made fun of, Kendra and Junior come up with the idea of passing an anti-hate crime law against heavier set people like them, rallying their fellow plus-sized people to gain support for their cause. But it doesn't fare well in their favor. Worst off, their loved ones mocked the idea of such a hate crime and them. Reaching their breaking point, Junior and Kendra run away to a place where, to their belief and understanding, fat people are accepted and free to be whoever they are. Wisconsin, where they can eat and splurge to their cholesterol-filled heart's desire. But they soon come to realize that between the fried Twinkies, pool of melted cheese, and mega-sized foods, it still leaves them feeling empty.
I thought eating anything and everything would solve all my problems. But maybe the eating is a symptom of other problems.
I'm so happy that Kendra came to that conclusion because, in some cases, weight issues are tied to other factors in one's life. Overindulging in comfort food and eating when stressed, bored, tired, etc. In some cases, weight problems and overeating can branch off the root of the real issue, which is why a big part of health and wellness should incorporate one's mental health as well. Dopamine is the happy chemical in our brain that makes us feel good. Eating something delicious, but not as nutritious, will set it off and eventually cause one to spiral down the rabbit hole, chasing that happy high. But once the root of the problem is found, the healing process of pruning can begin. Oh, I adore these tree metaphors. Good job. Aw, thanks, Spade. Cleveland and Lester apologize for hurting Junior and Kendra's feelings and take them home. While I agree with Cleveland that fat people don't deserve special treatment, but not that they choose to be fat. No one actively chooses that unless to meet a health requirement to increase their lack of body fat needed to maintain their wellness. Or better yet, I should say, that no one chooses to have more fat on them than their body can handle. Especially considering, again, and I will keep hammering this in, genetics play a large factor into it. Family genetics of passed down disorders or health risks are a bitch. That's why I got top surgery. No more back and shoulder pains, baby. I can breathe freely. Also, I knew a friend who, no matter how well she kept up with her dental hygiene, would always get cavities because it's a genetic trait from her family. Now, I do agree that making fun of fat people is wrong, objectively, just as punching down on anyone for their body type in general. And like I've mentioned in the previous health and wellness video, fat phobia hurts us all in different ways, but tends to target those on the heavier side more. It's not right to ridicule someone for their size, no. Should there be a law against it? Also no, because again, genetics play a role in fat distribution, and it could quickly become a race issue since Afro features are larger than Euro features. Also, I find pinning down a fine line to consider who is or isn't fat would just create another mark upon impossible beauty standards. Not to mention, someone with a more muscular build could be of the same weight as a fat person. person. Since muscles are heavier than fat, should they be considered to be protected under such an anti-discrimination law then? Speaking as a fat person myself, I don't think we should get special treatment because of the shape of our bodies. Instead of a law, people should just not be jerks to one another and learn how to accommodate those of different bodies. Last thing we need are people to mock those with a different body of any kind. Because it's not just fat bodies that have a hard time getting around, consider those of physical disabilities or need of mobility assistance. Trust and do believe that no one is more aware of their weight problem than the person who has to live with it. It doesn't help to mock them for it, nor does it actually help them maintain their wellness any better. If anything, it's gonna further ruin their mental health and cause a butterfly effect upon their wellness. And again, to reference the previous video, if you're not their unbiased medical provider, nor close family and friends that genuinely care and have their best interest in heart, keep your unwanted opinions on fat people to yourself. Now, where the Cleveland show had a fumbled message of fat acceptance I took issue with, Bluey somehow managed to piss me off more by heavily focusing on the scale. In the Bluey episode titled Exercise, after a disappointing analysis of the scale and the shape of his body, Bandit tries to exercise before work, but the kids incorporate their game with his workout. This is an extremely adorable episode because as Bandit is trying to squeeze in a quick workout, the kids use him as their office game, making him an elevator or chair to lift them, being a ping pong ball to run across the yard, and pretending he's different amusement park rides to swing and toss them around. It's so precious, knocking out two birds with one stone by having their playtime also be his workout. But as great as this episode was, it actually stirred up controversy when it first aired due to the opening scene of Bandit on the scale and checking his body in front of the girls, as well as Chili having the same disappointed demeanor on the scale. It sparked outrage, parents and health professionals calling the episode fat-shaming and stigmatizing weight, while detractors defended it due to the importance of health and exercise. The main issue stems from how the episode started, and I believe it should have started similar to where it ended, with Bandit having come from the doctors and being advised to be more active for his own health. Since as an older man who is raising two kids and works, I can imagine that he doesn't have much free time nor the energy to be active. Now, I'm sure that the writers and creative team of Bluey had the best intentions with this episode, as they do with every episode of Bluey, going above and beyond to showcase the realistic balance that comes from raising a family that most children's media don't even consider. The episode makes exercising look really fun, and I bet it gave a lot of parents creative ideas for not just games for their kids, but ways of working out. The episode ends with Bandit getting a checkup at the doctor's, clearing him for a clean bill of health.
Gotta say, Bandit, you're in great shape. Have you been going to the gym?
Nah, it's been coming to me.
Aside from the opening scene, which has been edited out on Disney+, the episode was the usual lighthearted fun that's expected from Bluey. Parents have a hard enough time as it is with going to work, being a responsible adult, and raising children that it leaves little to no time and energy to work out, especially if they have younger kids. They fall into the habit of eating the same snacks their children do for a quick bite and feeling exhausted by the end of the day. Moving their bodies is the last thing on their minds. But finding the little moments to do small exercises or something fun can help make all the difference. It may not be the same as taking an hour to do a full workout at the gym, but doing a quick set or taking a 10-minute walk can help fill in those gaps for one's wellness, as well as planting nutritious foods in your lunchbox or keeping them front and center in the refrigerator. For Bandit and Chili, I just wish their motivation for exercising wasn't heavily tied to the scale, because the numbers don't tell us as much as our minds think it does. It just tells us how much we weigh at that given day or even moment. For some people, their weight can fluctuate throughout the day. It's rarely consistent but stays within that ballpark number. While yes, it's been proven that weekly, even daily weigh-ins can help one on their weight loss journey, some of us are rightfully fearful of the dreaded scale, especially if it's not related to your fitness goals. If frequent weigh-ins are helpful to you, that's great, but it's not for everyone. I, for one, think about getting a scale every now and again, but I worry about hyperfixating on it to an unhealthy degree. And since I'm autistic, that will happen. Because, fun fact, muscles weigh more than fat, so it's harder to tell the difference if the added weight would be from poor choices or the result of good ones. It would drive me insane. I'm anti-scale all the way because it's not helpful in my health and wellness journey. But if it is for some of you, keep up the good work. I much prefer making a game out of working out. It keeps me entertained and actually motivates me to move my body. But I also know when to stop for a much needed break because there is such thing as too much of a good thing. In the Amazing World of Gumball episode titled The Diet, Gumball and Darwin help their dad Richard with his diet. Unfortunately, it worked too well, turning him into a muscle-bound jerk that's somehow even more of a danger to the neighborhood than before. The episode doesn't make it known why Richard has suddenly started dieting, but for whatever reason it may be, he's doing it completely wrong. Doing every diet at once and rewarding himself for dieting just leaves the house empty of food, and Richard's health steadily declining as he grows larger and more sluggish. So the kids take it upon themselves to help Richard diet properly, starting with gathering all the hidden foods he's stashed in the house. Later, to pick up the pace, the kids put their father through a montage of training, motivated by his favorite thing in the world.
We use food to trick Dad into exercising.
It starts with using junk food to help get Richard moving, but as he slowly makes progress, the kids switch out the junk food for nutritious ones, with incredible results. Not only was Richard cutting down his weight, but his self-confidence was growing too, which is great until he overdoes the montage to the point of becoming a jacked-ass rabbit. He might be better in shape, but his personality completely tanked, which causes mayhem in Elmore as he flexes on everyone. And the only way to stop him was for Gumball to remind Richard of what's the most important thing in the world to him.
What means more to you than anything else?
Yes! Remember your family!
No food!
Damn, out of all the episodes to not have Nicole in them, would have loved to have seen her reaction to buff Richard. So exactly what's the lesson to be learned here? In all honesty, I don't think there is a greater lesson to be learned from here. Richard just likes food, and he's at his best, personality-wise, when he gets to eat, though I think he could stand to have more color on his plate and less grease. Richard likes to eat, so he could find some nutritious foods that he'd like too. Maybe there's a lesson in incorporating more nutritious foods as he ransacks the fridge. I don't know, you got me on that one. Oh, but I hate it when Richard became a self-absorbed jerk once he got swole. It's great that he gained more confidence in himself after getting ripped, but he was so insufferable and actively a danger to those around him. His buff design did look good though. Not so much so a cartoonish meathead as one would expect. But I'm so glad that muscles didn't affect Josh's personality, just his priorities, sadly. In the Close Enough episode titled Josh Gets Shredded, Josh tries to get into better shape so he can lift his daughter, Candace, during playtime, but gets caught up in the gym lifestyle and his gains that he became too busy to play with her. I really miss Close Enough. It had a rough journey coming to air on TBS, just to be moved to Max and got wiped off the face of the streaming site. It was a breath of fresh air for adult animation, and though it was no regular show, but it was close enough. I loved how the episode starts with a short montage of Josh and Candace's relationship since she was born, how much he really cares and loves his daughter, wanting to give her the best playtime he can, up until the present day where he can no longer lift her as easily as he could when she was smaller. Josh is sent to the hospital where the doctor informs him that the only way he could ever pick up his daughter again is if he builds up his core strength through exercise.
You need to work on your core if you want to get better.
I would like a second opinion.
Start exercising!
Josh is fully motivated to get into better shape for Candace, but he just can't stomach it. Not until he meets Jim Crunch, a trainer at Swole Town, USA, where the people there are fully committed to fitness and exercise. It's a gym cult, but with friendlier members. They don't mess around when it comes to fitness, but if it means being able to pick up his daughter again, Josh puts in the time and dedication into getting jacked. Pumping that iron, pounding back those protein shakes, hitting the gym every hour on the hour. He reaches swole, but it's not enough. He desires to become an absolute unit to be enough for Candace. Ironically, during his training, he sadly neglects Candace in the process of becoming strong enough to play with her again. His wife Emily tries talking some sense into him between wanting to be supportive of Josh taking better care of his health, but also drooling all over him. Once achieving absolute unit status, Josh ascends to a higher plane of strength and recreates their game of King Kong to that of the movie. Strong or not, Candace still loves her dad and just wants to spend time with him. It didn't matter if he could still pick her up or not, just being able to play together was enough.
I lost all my gains.
That's okay. I liked Strong Dad, but I love Dad.
Gosh, I miss this show. It deserves so much better. Though Josh lost himself in the protein powdered sauce, I love that his motivation to get into shape was for his daughter. Now this is the direction the Bluey episode should have gone into, in my opinion, and as he gradually gained muscle mass, his character design was really good. He got wider and bigger and probably weighed half a ton since muscles are heavier than fat. It would make no sense if he was shaped like a bodybuilder since sculpted muscles are more for show than they are being of use. I really like the direction they went with every design as he gradually grew more buff. Also, I love that Josh kept his airheaded, happy-go-lucky personality as he was getting shredded. Aside from overconfidence, I don't know what it is about massive gains that turns a person into a douchebag, but I'm so glad that that didn't affect Josh and that it wasn't a conflict for the episode. I think Josh was plenty strong enough at the swole level to play with Candace. He didn't need to reach absolute unit status. If having too much fat on your body isn't good for you, then I'm sure getting overly muscular isn't good either. Your body needs a certain level of body fat just as it needs a certain amount of muscle mass. You shouldn't tip the scale one way over the other. It's almost like too much of anything would cause your body to quit on you or something. Curiouser and curiouser. Ah, I see where you're going with this. In the regular show episode titled Rigby's Body, after Mordecai and Rigby pig out while working at the snack bar, where Mordecai recovers by eating something nutritious like a salad, Rigby goes non-stop eating junk food until his body quits on him. There's something about early regular show where they were slightly more vulgar and off-model for exaggerated expressions that I miss in the late seasons. Yes, nostalgia hits us all differently. Mordecai tries warning Rigby to ease up on the grease and sweets or else his body will quit on him due to the lack of nutrition. He's neglecting it. The more junk food Rigby eats, the worse he feels until his body has had enough and ditches him. While Skips and Mordecai go looking for his body, Rigby isn't taking the situation as seriously as he should and ends up thrown out into the trash with another bodiless consciousness who lost his body due to lifting too much weights. The bodybuilder takes Rigby's body and the gang has to chase him down to retrieve it. They got it just in time with a few minor damages to it. In the end, Rigby learned to be more mindful and take better care of his body.
I'll never treat you like that again.
I consider this an excellent middle ground when it comes to a health and wellness episode. The message is clear. Your body will quit on you for either ends of the extremes, eating too much junk food or over-exercising. You don't have to quit sweets cold turkey. They're okay in moderation, but you can't completely forego nutritious meals either. And if your body is too sore to keep working out, give it a rest to prepare for the next exercise. But you don't want to quit too soon. The key is balance to maintaining your health and wellness. I find these episodes to be more so on the lighter side and much more open-minded when it comes to discussing health and wellness in media. Starting a movement of fat acceptance could cause more harm than good, since it's just setting another standard of what is or isn't an acceptable body type. Don't give too much power to the bathroom scale. Find more creative ways to get in quick workouts. Try to be more aware of how much fatty and empty calorie foods you're consuming between your nutritious meals. Don't overexert yourself to reach an impossible amount of muscle mass that your body can't handle. Brush up on your family's genetic history to better combat what may be in store for you. Take the best care of your mental health because that does affect your overall physical health and well-being. Best of luck to you all on your own journey. Take it at your own pace and no one else's. You're doing great. Remember that progress is not always linear. You fell off, you can get back up. You're making progress no matter what. I've done plenty of talking about health and wellness regarding plus-sized people, but now's the time to switch gears and shed some light on the other extreme that gets neglected in discussions: the glorification of skinniness and obsession with muscles. A common misconception in health circles is that if someone is skinny, then they're healthy, but that's not always the case. Just as you can't fully assess a fat person's health just by looking at them, same goes with those who are slimmer. Sure, on the outside, they seem fine because they meet the social and beauty standard of health. However, beneath the surface, they may have their own fair share of health concerns that they're dealing with. Same goes with those of a more muscular build. To assume that a buff person automatically equates to them being healthy would also be incorrect. Considering muscles are heavier than fat, that's even more strain on their bodies to carry. Not to mention the great differences there are for muscular builds. You shouldn't compare a bodybuilder to a weightlifter because the former sculpts their muscles for fashion over a function, while the latter are capable of lifting well over 500 pounds. Bottom line, it always comes back to self-image and doing what you need to maintain your health your way. Otherwise, your drive could lead to serious risks, whether you desire to be skinny or muscular. Something these batch of episodes I've selected portray very well and gives us something to think about regarding our own health and wellness journey. In the Rocco's Modern Life episode No Pain, No Gain, Rocco and Heifer join an exclusive fitness center but lose points for making a mess of the place. With Rocco feeling out of shape and Heifer getting fatter, his words, not mine, The boys try a luxurious fitness spa, but due to having a high-class clientele, they gotta dress for the part before even getting started. The boys attend various fitness activities, but are having difficulties finding a workout that's best for them. They tried an aerobics class that was going well until Rocco got knocked around the room. Next is weightlifting and rowing, but the boys have a troubling time on the machines. Rocco suggests they play basketball and go for a swim, something less boring for Heifer's taste, but they all end in disaster as well. The final nail in the coffin was when Rocco tried a highly advanced workout machine that nearly ended him. They cool down at the juice bar and sauna, but due to Heifer's carelessness, gets him kicked out. However, Rocco is welcome to stay, but wanting to stay loyal to his best friend, Rocco declined their offer of a membership.
That bovine dog is my best friend, and if he's not good enough for your club, I'm not good enough.
The episode ends with the two deciding to do their own at-home workouts. While initially going to the fitness and spa center for Heifer's well-being, where Rocco was trying his best at the facility's activities, Heifer has been snacking the entire time, making no progress whatsoever, not taking the workouts as seriously as Rocco was, to the gecko's disapproval. Heifer wasn't making any progress because he kept eating and sneaking away from every activity, quite literally counterproductive to a workout and a healthy lifestyle. I guess a lesson that can be learned from this episode is to avoid falling into trendy workout facilities to meet their outrageous standards. Not everyone is knowledgeable about gym equipment and very well might even hurt themselves in the process. Besides, there's plenty of home exercises one could do. Skip those pricey gym memberships and uncomfortable public workout settings from the privacy of your own home. I'd recommend something fun like the Ring Adventure game on the Nintendo Switch if you have one. I've had one myself for about a year now and I just love it. Gives you a whole lot of neat tips and tricks when it comes to fitness and health. There's also a large variety of free online videos to get a quick workout from. My go-to in the past was recreating the Just Dance moves in my living room. All of our workouts consisted of something to motivate us to get moving. Might be helpful to you too if you get as bored as easily as Heifer does. Although I'd advise not having a pizza present while working out, that's just counterproductive. Because Heifer wasn't as serious as Rocco was this episode regarding his health, his role was just causing more trouble for the poor wallaby. Typical modern life. Since Heifer was not as productive as the wallaby could have been, how about we discuss a character that was actively trying to lose weight and struggled to do so? Sounds good, but were they losing weight for themselves, or were they pressured to do so? Well, in the Hey Arnold episode Weighing Harold, feeling upset because everyone makes fun of him for being fat, Harold goes on a cruise to lose weight, only to find out that he gained more weight during the trip. Harold eats 50 ice cream bars to the neighborhood kids' amazement, but the ice cream man mocks him and fat shames him for doing it, proclaiming an early retirement if he had more customers like him and calls Harold Tubby. Doesn't help that he also overhears the kids in the neighborhood also make fun of him for his weight and poor decision to buy 50 ice cream bars just to get a couple of quarters out of them. Fat shaming is exactly what it sounds like, harassing someone for their eating choices and their weight. It's not so much as criticizing them in hopes that they'll improve themselves, it's just targeted bullying and harassment and a completely inefficient way of motivating plus-sized bodies. Later, Harold asks his parents if he is fat, where his father suggests that he could stand to lose a few pounds. His mother reassures him that he's just as husky as she was at his age.
I turned out to be a perfectly normal sized person.
I know it didn't make him feel any better, but she's right. Harold's mom seems to be at a decent size for her age and genetics, which are passed down to her son and will reflect that later in his own life. If she can live a happy, healthy life at her size, then so can Harold. But as a child, he doesn't recognize that just yet. Harold is distraught by the neighborhood kids and even his own parents' comments on his weight. So when he sees an ad for a weight loss cruise, he jumps at the chance at it in hopes of becoming skinny. But when Harold returns, he gains even more weight after the cruise and feels further self-conscious than before. It doesn't help that his mother also keeps downplaying his obvious weight gain and calling everything normal, while his father tries to address it, all the while Harold is beating himself up for his size. I love the role his parents were playing in this episode, one willing to gently address the issue while the other sees no problem in the first place. Perhaps Harold's mom was also fat-shamed in her youth and didn't want her son to develop further insecurities, and while his dad is trying to be as gentle as possible with Harold's feelings, he just wants what's best for his son. They're both well-intentioned for Harold's sake, but ignoring the problem wasn't helping, and neither was dancing around it either. Harold dives into comfort eating more low-fat ice creams, which is sadly counterproductive and is just the same as eating fewer regular ice creams. because he is deeply worried about his friend, Arnold visits Harold and offers his assistance in helping him lose weight through healthy eating and exercise. But because Harold wants to avoid further humiliation from his peers, they work out at night. Very valid reasoning. Being self-conscious while working on yourself gets to the best of us. Harold struggles even with Arnold's help and reveals that while he was on the cruise, he ate even more because he was worried about people thinking he was fat. So from the kids and Ice Cream Man calling him fat, to the little boy mistaking him for a fat man that his mother corrected to being a fat boy, Harold's breakdown stemmed from concerning himself about how others perceived him rather than how he sees himself. Arnold helps him realize that he was happier at his old weight, and they work on getting Harold back to his old fat self, and to not let others' view of him taint how he sees himself.
The important thing is what you think, Harold.
Right, what I think.
The episode ends with Harold as his old self again, to the kids' amazement and delight of his transformation. This episode showcased the dangers of fat shaming and assuming that their weight is a problem, as if a fat person isn't already aware that they aren't fat. Oh, but we're just helping by telling them they need to work on themselves. Constantly insulting someone about their body doesn't help them as much as you think it does. And even if they are fat, they could be at a healthy weight for their size and genetic background. Hence the importance of not assuming that every person with a couple of pounds on them are at a major health risk. Harold was more fixated on becoming skinny to prove he wasn't a fat slob to others instead of focusing on how he viewed himself firstly. That's another slippery slope. Aiming to be skinny might be in the deck for some people's goals, but it's not achievable for others due to genetics, limited access to resources, and or a combination of multiple factors. For myself, I know I'll never have a flat stomach, but I can maintain my health to avoid growing larger than my body can handle. And I'm glad that for Harold that he was able to bring his weight back down to his usual comfort level. Because in cases where a plus-sized body is constantly belittled and policed, insecurities will develop around eating too much, or too little, I'm afraid. In the American Dad episode, American Dad After School Special, Stan develops a weight problem after being critical of Steve's new overweight girlfriend. After meeting a goth girl while escaping PE, Steve grows infatuated with his new girlfriend, Debbie. But when he brings her home for dinner to meet the family, Stan shelters them away to the panic room because, according to Stan, she's a fatty. Stan's judgmental hard-ass attitude nearly drives a wedge between Steve and Debbie. The family calls out Stan's hypocrisy for body-shaming Debbie, noting that Stan has let himself go. Because of his deep-seated hatred for plus-sized people, Stan has been putting himself through a rigorous diet and exercise regimen for the past 3 weeks, lowering his weight but also his intake of food. It starts to get worse when he gets a personal trainer named Zach that further pushes him toward the edge. While Stan and the audience are led to believe that he's gaining even more weight despite how much he works out and that the family is sabotaging him, the Smiths discover that Stan's weight problem doesn't stem from him being too fat, he's been suffering from anorexia. Wait, are we allowed to say that on YouTube? I'm not sure, but let's just censor it to be safe. I didn't bust my ass editing audio for hours to get demonetized. Please remember to check out the Kofi. It helps a lot. The more he thinks about how fat he is, the quicker Stan is withering himself away.
You keep thinking you're fat no matter how skinny you get.
I'm a huge tub of lard.
No, you aren't! You're just suffering from a delusional state!
Even Zach, his personal trainer, was all a part of his delusion and obsession to avoid fat. The family takes him to a help group that's mainly dominated by teenage girls with the same health issue as Stan. Excellent subtle commentary on how EDs are often looked down as a teenage girl problem rather than the reality of anyone being able to develop it. Steve blames himself for bringing Debbie home, causing a shift in the household that he believes started Stan's problem. So wanting to help his father recover, he decides to break up with Debbie. As the family do their part to help Stan eat properly again, he learns a trick to avoid food from one of the girls at the group's counseling session. Instead of working on his recovery, Stan has been hiding and moving the food to various places. It all comes to a boiling point when Stan tries setting Steve up with his new friend at a restaurant where Roger intended to woo the newly single Debbie. Francine and Haley find his food graveyard, infuriating Steve to know that his father wasn't even trying to get better, despite breaking up with a girl he really liked in hopes of helping him. Honestly, Stan could bother learning a thing or two from Steve about liking a person for more than just their appearance.
I don't care if she was fat or thin. She was sweet and beautiful and kind of freaky in a good way.
Which was enough for Stan to realize that he's been the ugly one on the inside and outside and starts eating regularly again.
It doesn't matter to me. If you're happy, I'm happy.
And Sia was depicted surprisingly well in this episode. The struggle of the delusion of how one sees themselves, loved ones trying their best to help, and the ignorant avoidance of anything fat was done really well. Very thoughtful, I'd say. Stan's judgmental and fat-phobic behavior is what drove him to develop an ED in the first place. Similar to a lot of people, it could come from one's own personal biases against fat people that causes their own downfall, as well as others placating on their insecurities that could hurt them in the long run. In the Brace Face episode titled Skin Deep, Sharon is excited to model for Dion in the school fashion show, but when Nina makes a catty remark about her size, Sharon starts feeling insecure about her body and goes on an extreme diet. I'm not all too familiar with the Canadian Chinese cartoon Brace Face, but my supporters in the Kofi exclusive Discord recommended I give this episode a watch. And if you're interested in joining the Discord, recommend some TV shows, or simply wish to vibe with some chill people, myself included, it's a one-time payment of $3. Just follow the link in the description. It helps support the channel while I'm between jobs right now, and your name will appear at the end of every video, as well as access to early videos, work-in-progress thumbnails, art, and much more perks I've been cooking up. Just make sure to read the rules thoroughly. Alright, that's enough e-begging, back to the episode. Preparing for a school-wide fashion show, Sharon is excited to model for the best designer in the school, Dion. But because the mean girls are jealous that Sharon gets to wear Dion's sparkling masterpiece and they're stuck with faux fur leftovers, they poke fun at her problem areas. Harrison, the set designer, puts the girls in their place. Love when a plus-size king doesn't back down to body shamers. We stan! Once trying on the dress, Sharon starts to feel self-conscious about her size, though Dion reassures her that he could let it out to better fit her. Sharon is determined to go down a size to make it work. Because Nina got into her head about her body size, Sharon starts eating less, over-exercising, and comparing her body to the other girls at school. Doesn't help that Nina keeps stoking the flames of Sharon's insecurities, while also mocking her for hanging out with Harrison, who is such a lovely kid, kind, generous, and thoughtful, though Nina makes fun of his appetite. The food he was eating sounded very nutritious to me. Grilled veggie wraps, pita, hummus, and a large juice, which is quite refreshing to see because most of the time when a fat character is shown eating with others, it's usually a greasy nightmare or a cartoonishly large amount of food. Great job, Braceface. You did good by Harrison. Yeah, unlike some shows that usually end on the lesson of, hey, you might be fat, but you're also a person too, I guess, whatever. It gets even better in terms of drama because when Dion presses Sharon about Harrison's feelings for her, instead of telling him the truth, she makes up having a boyfriend to avoid going out with him.
I just didn't picture myself with someone who looked like Harrison. Was that so terrible?
Shallow. Absolutely. Needlessly harsh. Definitely the mindset of a teenage girl who's much more attracted to a fit, cooler guy she knows nothing about compared to the boy she gets along with really well. Sadly, natural. So not only is Sharon starving herself for the fashion show, she's overworking herself to get Daryl's attention too. It's the classic girl wants attention from the shallow pretty boy rather than from the sweetheart fat kid who's been better to her trope. Breaks my heart every time. Sharon is finally able to fit in the dress, but she has little to no energy to even do her homework. Her friends come over for an intervention, worried that she's developing an ED, which Sharon is quick to downplay as just a diet. After all, fashion magazines showcase models that are skinny as sticks, and they're the most beautiful women in the world, as she says. I'm so happy that her friends gave it to her straight up that those pictures are heavily photoshopped, altered, and just because those bodies are on the cover, it doesn't mean they're healthy.
Making you feel less than is big business. The worse you feel about yourself, the more products you'll buy to feel better.
Finally getting her to eat just a little bit was a good start, but Sharon is determined to keep up with this physique after the fashion show. At the fitting, Dion and Harrison note that Sharon is looking pale and fragile, clearly the side effects of her so-called diet. Her attitude towards Harrison was also no better, putting him down to uplift herself. During the show, Sharon faints and Harrison helps her recover backstage. Sharon makes amends with him, and though they made up, Sharon lost her chance with a great guy like him due to her own insecurities. In the end, just like how Harrison is fine with the way he looks, Sharon learns to better appreciate herself and not put so much focus on how others see her. It's like her friend said,
if you looked in the mirror, you're the last person who needs to be on a diet.
Because her body was fine just the way it was. Unfortunately, just like Harold, letting other people's view of her caused Sharon to spiral down an unhealthy and dangerous road that she was thankfully able to recover from with the help of her close friends. There was nothing the matter with her body in the first place, and Dion was more than willing to adjust the dress to better fit her. But Nina's mean words played on Sharon's insecurities, and crushing on a shallow guy who valued slimmer girls didn't help her case either. The world hosts a variety of bodies, and no one should be shamed for having a different one.
I mean, look around you, Sharon. All shapes and sizes, right?
Models have an unrealistic standard put upon them, and usually have their photos altered to meet said standard, which is why it's good to see a multitude of bodies on the cover of fashion magazines to include more body diversity, because health can come in a variety of shapes and sizes. More than most people like to think, actually. In the regular show episode Power Tower, when the guys are banned from the gym, Muscle Man enters a bodybuilding competition to win back their entrance. But he struggles to get his gains back in time and must find a new method to victory. When the guys' game of ping pong gets interrupted by an ex-bodybuilder competitor of Muscle Man's, Dale, he forces them out of the gym for being a hot mess. Dale challenges Muscle Man to the Power Tower bicentennial. Winner gets free range to play ping pong or else permanent banishment from the gym. Muscle Man tells the guys the story of how he got into lifting through his dad.
He may not have had the most ripped body, but he was as strong as an ox.
Naturally, while bodybuilders sculpt their muscles for show, they tend to have little use for them. Their muscles were gained through an entirely different training and diet regimen than those of weightlifters, who need to be big, wide, and large to sustain the amount they're lifting. And because of that, they are very strong. The day Muscle Dad was struggling with a lift, Muscle Boy saved him and got ripped. He won every bicentennial for a while until growing bored of it and just stepping away from it all. But getting back to his old physique with such a limited time would be impossible, so instead of beating Dale with muscles, Mitch is going to have to put his all into technique. With advice from his ghost dad and the knowledge of the ultimate bodybuilder technique on his side, Muscle Man was able to keep up with the competition, reaching the final round. He pulls off the life-threatening pose, the Shredder, and wins the bicentennial. Now the boys can play ping pong anytime they want, but not until Mitch gets a well-earned cooldown.
My muscles are killing me.
According to this article by Cleveland Clinic Health Essentials, it tries to answer the question, is being fat and fit healthy? Through her research, Leslie Chow, MD, found that for the short term, obesity and fitness can coexist. There are people with excess weight who are avid exercisers, emphasizes Dr. Chow. If that describes you, there's no question that your workouts are benefiting your body. You'll see results. Bottom line, you're better off exercising than not exercising, she says. However, her research for the long term also found that working out a few times a week doesn't permanently block health issues related to the excess weight. Those extra pounds eventually take a toll on your body and contribute to metabolic syndrome, heart disease risk factors. The article goes on to say that weight loss can be the solution to help prevent these potential health risks, but Dr. Chow approaches the matter from a place of understanding and being open-minded about the difficulties that come with the topic of weight loss. Weight, of course, is a sensitive topic that comes with cultural baggage. Dr. Chow asks that we look past the idea that being thinner is just about fitting into a smaller pant size. Maintaining a healthy weight is about living a long time with a high quality of life, she says. Think of it as helping you not have a heart attack, not have a stroke, and not need blood pressure or cholesterol medication. That's the relationship to build with your weight. I'd argue with the article, though very well intentioned and researched, that it takes more than just working out regularly to maintain your health if you're also fat. Even according to the BMI, which is utter bullshit that Dr. Chow acknowledged, but for the sake of her research, used in her assessment. A bodybuilder who looks capable of bench pressing a pickup truck would register a higher BMI because muscle weighs more than fat. Race and ethnicity can also skew what's a good or bad BMI. What you put into your body is just as important, so it can have the proper fuel needed to sustain such workouts. I would say Muscle Man is a dead ringer for someone who could be considered fat and fit. He might not be as lean as he used to be, but he's the strongest guy working at the park. Yes, even stronger than Skips. He has terrible eating habits now, but in the later season, thanks to his future wife, they start incorporating nutritious meals in their diets to help them live a long and happy life together. And if the finale of regular show is anything to go off of, it definitely paid off in the end. So whether your goal is to fit into a new outfit, to have more confidence in yourself, or to powerlift a truck, it can be possible so long as you do it safely and not for anyone else's approval. I, for one, would like to be able to crush watermelons with my thighs someday. Exercising until you're exhausted or starving yourself until you can see your bones is objectively not healthy for anyone. Take it a day at a time. You will have slip-ups, but you can also keep going. So don't let shamers and insecure brats dull your shine streaks. You got this!